Hey,
It worked.
it did. How you doing?
I'm doing great. How you doing?
I'm okay. It's a beautiful day here in Pennsylvania.
It's a beautiful day in Brooklyn.
Good, good. Why don't you start us off by telling us who you are, where you are? Well, you just said Brooklyn, who you are and what you do.
My name is Nathaniel Marro. I am a booking agent for a small independent agency called Entourage Talent. We're located in NYC. I'm in Brooklyn. I've been here for about 10 years now. I'm originally from Vermont. Went from Vermont to Montreal to here, and here I am.
And have you gotten much of a chance in the last few weeks to listen to music?
Yeah, I mean every day, pretty
What have you
much.
been listening to?
Um, this week let's see here. I was actually writing it down. So, I was listening to a bunch of John Lee Hooker the other day. I was listening to a bunch of Sly and the Family Stone the other day. I went back and revisited the new Fiona Apple record.
Ah,
Um, I actually, so I have Title, her first on LP, and I accidentally played it at 45 RPM, I think, or is the other one? Either way, it was way too slow, and I'm like, this actually sounds amazing. So if there's any that should cover it and has a deeper voice, it would sound great. What else have I been listening to? Yeah, just Swamp Dogg. Do you know Swamp Dogg?
I know of Swamp Dogg.
Swamp Dogg is someone I discovered recently, and just like he's blown me away. He's just super silly, but also amazingly great. His last record actually has John Prine on it, so I was listening to it Friday, which was a pretty emotional, intense day, regardless. And then John Prine's voice came on, and just like, ugh. So yeah, just been going through. I mean, usually my listening these days runs between like whatever kind of just came out and something I feel like I haven't dedicated enough time to. So.
That's a good practice. How have you been? I guess this is a two-part question. How have you been passing the time during the last few months of the shutdown? And then I'd like to talk to you about how it's affected your work.
Mhm. Um, the way I've been passing the time, I mean, the first couple weeks and the first month were a lot of just, actual work, administrative stuff, rescheduling shows, all that kind of stuff, and, figuring out what the next year was going to look like. And then when that all kind of settled down and it came to a point where it's like, we don't have any idea how this is going to end or when it's going to end, I just started focusing more on things that I usually didn't have time for. So, I started practicing guitar. Me and my friend actually, we kind of have like a monthly thing where we'll send each other like a song or, a solo or something to try to learn. So I've been doing that for the past couple months. This month is Lenny by Steve Ray Vaughan. Um, and so I've like, that's the first time in my life I really sat down. I was a saxophone player for like 10, 15 years. Like I thought that was going to be my life. I originally went to college for that. Um, and so like, music has always been like a thing that I just is a necessity in my life to play. And basically since I've joined the business, I haven't been able to play as much.
Mm-hmm.
And so now that I'm able to just like kind of take a pause and just really focus on practicing, that's been really fun. And reading, going for runs and walks. I mean, just slowing down because
Mm-hmm.
I feel like the music business and a lot of businesses, but I feel like the music business especially, like there's the idea that if you're busy, you're successful, and that's just kind of a lie we like to tell ourselves. And I think now's been a really good time to just be like, this is actually probably more in line with the style of life I'd like, where I'm both working but also taking more time for myself. So that's been good. And then the second part was like how it's impacted my work or
Yeah, I mean, we had have a show booked together that I think in March we pushed it to November, but who knows if that's still going to even happen. Talk to me about what it's been like to reroute tours without really knowing what
it's
the
weird.
end is to all this.
So we took a March tour and we put it to September, and then we realized September's probably not going to happen, so we put it to now it's in April of next year. Um, and like now it's like I hope April of next year, April and May of next year happens. It probably should, but who knows? Um, and so it's just a lot of uncertainty and like it's just kind of just putting your head down and being like, well, this is the work that we're hired to do, so we're going to do it. That's been a weird aspect, but I mean, people have been pretty understanding. I think that's good. I'd
Hmm.
like for that mindset to continue. I think it'd be better off if we were all just a little bit more chill about everything. So, like, yeah, we don't know what's going to happen. Let's accept that and let's just move forward. And that's kind of been the mindset. It's actually been a very, on that sense, pleasurable experience to work with some folks because just um, everyone's in a similar place. No one knows what's going to happen. So, yeah, I've been moving stuff all around. The thing that's really been the biggest bummer is for some of these acts that aren't as like, well established. It's, the summer's gone and that's a giant source of income and they don't know when they're going to work again. I have one act that I got on XBN Festival for the first time, and I've been trying for like 4 or 5 years, and so they're gonna have him back next year, but still, it's just like that's a huge letdown. And you're taking a year away from development from these people, and like if you're an artist and like you're all in like your mid 30s, and I'm not saying mid 30s is old, but like at a certain point, you're like, all right, how long can I keep on doing this, and really be pushing for it, and that's definitely gonna be it's gonna weigh on you mentally a little bit too. So yeah, that's been tough. It's been tough for them. And then there's also artists at the other side of that where it's like they're kind of toward the tail end of the career, and it's just like, all right, how long are we gonna be able to keep doing this?
Hmm.
And then you have people in the middle, and it's like they're doing well right now, but at the same time they have massive amounts of people that they employ, and they have like no idea when they're gonna come back. So every level of it has a different struggle associated to it. But the uncertainty, and I think this business especially is, no one knows when it's going to come back or come back to normal, and it's going to be a while. It's going to be years at least before there's some semblance of normalcy.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's a good segue. I know that you are always concerned with um, everything you do in your work being in the best interest of the artists that you're hired to serve. What Talk to me a little bit about the changes you'd like to see happen across the industry that would better support them and make things more sustainable for them,
I
so it's a
think,
little less precarious maybe when something like this happens.
yeah, I mean, they're gig workers more or less. I mean, 90% of them don't have any sort of health insurance covered by an employer, if not more. Instagram's telling me I have 5 minutes left. It's fine. Um, Most of them, yeah, they don't have health insurance. They don't have any sort of stability outside of the gigs that they're going to get. And like, that's part of the life that they signed up for. They understand that. But when suddenly you're saying everything you've worked towards can't happen anymore, and granted, this is a very, unique situation. It's not like they have lobbyists that are going to start pushing for them. It's not like they have someone in their court that's really going to start, firing up on all cylinders and just like making sure that their lives remain at least solvable. Like a lot of musicians aren't going to be able to make it back from this. That's one of the things that's just not going to happen. And it's upsetting. I think, we take arts for granted far too much. I mean, people's lives through these past couple months have been sustained through culture.
Mhm.
And you're looking at a scenario right now where the cultural creators might not be able to make it back. Um, and there's no safety net at all. So I mean, I think easy step one, and it's not at all easy, but like being able to make sure that artists and people that are gig workers in the gig economy could have access to healthcare, be that Medicare. I know Medicaid is very specific about how much you're making, so I mean Medicare would more or less have to be it. So you have access to healthcare, especially during a pandemic. We were talking about this the other day, and the Music Cares Fund that was set up raised millions and millions of dollars, and they ran out of money in like 3 weeks.
Immediately, yeah.
That's nuts. And it's like giving out, I think, like $1,000 grants, and like they had like 20,000 applications that they were able to, that just came in instantly. And it's like the need far surpasses the ability to sustain and maintain. And I don't know what people expect to happen to artists in that situation. They're already broke and hungry, and now you just want them, like, what do people expect? So I think that's terrible, and I think we need to set up some sort of serious, like, I don't know, be it a fund or just some accessible thing that's always being funded and always being sustained where they can get grants when needed and just not have to go through a state system. Just like something that's solely dedicated to musicians or artists. It's not the National Endowment of the Arts. It's whatever it is. Um, it's just heavily funded as often as possible and just maintained and sustained. Um, People need access to help as much as possible. And there's a lot of people hurting out there. Obviously, musicians are not alone in that, or artists. And I think it's important to recognize that. But for the amount of joy that they give us, we really don't give them any sustained stability. So I don't know. I think we need to address that heavily. I think it's very important.
Couldn't agree more. Hey, listen, if Instagram kicks you off, try to come back on with me.
I think it'll be okay.
Okay, the final question I have for you to wrap things up is where people can go for information, maybe about how to support artists, about the things you care about. How do we best support that as, an audience?
I think as an audience, the first thing we can really be doing is acknowledging and accepting the problem. I think education is important right now. I think music and musicians, they have this combined, um, they have this level, they have let me figure this out. So they have a profession that is viewed as desirable. And most people don't understand how awful it is. If you've never been, and I'm not saying it's awful. I guess what I'm trying to say is those 90 minutes on stage, that's not the job. Everything else that goes into it is tiresome and is extremely difficult work. Anyone that's loaded up a van and gone gig to gig like that knows just how it just drags and it weighs down. And you're also in a van with 5 people for like months on end. And it's just like emotions run high, everything. And there's all these things. And you're at the same time supposed to come on stage every night and provide joy to the people that came. And usually you're very good at that aspect. That's not the job. So I think it's important for people to recognize that, like, you see that band on stage, it's like, oh God, I want to be that. I could do that. That's what I want to be doing. And then you actually have to realize what's behind that. It's a lot of work to get that good. A lot of work to be able to sustain and maintain a career like that. It's just incredible amounts of work.
Well, you've either frozen or it's kicked you off. You're back.
Okay, sorry. So that's step one, I think, is just making sure people know exactly how hard and grueling the life is. But at the same time, you see someone like Beyonce like getting $15 million to play Coachella, and you're like, oh my God, artists have it off easy. They have it great. And it's like that's 0.1% of the actual musician and artist population. Um, when that's the case, people see the end result of a lot of effort going in. They're like, everyone can do that, or I could do that, or that's something I want to do. But then they don't realize that 99.9% of musicians and artists out there are struggling, and it's grueling, very difficult work. So I think education is important, and just letting people know just what it's like. Um, After that, I think something that we can do that'd be helpful is also transparency amongst artists. To be like, I also make money doing this, or I have this job on the side doing this, and just there are ways to sustain and like build a life, a livelihood that's comfortable. I think that the artist community as well to help out other artists. I know the Music Cares is doing a lot of things right now, especially in mental health, which is good. And I think that's a huge part of. There's a lot of mental health credits in artists, obviously. Something I'm talking about recently with someone's just the idea of post-tour fatigue, almost like a PTSD of sorts, because you basically spent all this time living in one mindset, and then you have to come back to quote-unquote normal life. And that's a huge adjustment. I think people really understand, and that's like a part of their job, but like it's real. And when you talk about mental health crises within artists and musicians, I mean, that's part of it. It's the ability to turn it off and turn it on and turn it off and turn it on, and like going and creating something from nothing. That's a lot of pressure on a person. So all those things are important. And then for things I'm trying to do at this current point, but hopefully I can start one day. Who knows? I'm not sure. But I think it's really just kind of an education process right now. I think we're looking at a beautiful point in music right now, in entertainment business, that hopefully this can be a bit of a turning point, where we can start to really appreciate the labor that artists put in, and them as a very powerful and important part of our labor force, uh, that brings a lot of people great amounts of joy, and we just kind of expect it to exist. And then when it's not there, it's like, oh, okay. So I hope this is a bit of a turning point. I hope there is silver linings here that we can have and move forward with. But I think it's going to be a bit of a collective understanding and education process first. So all the things I'm working towards bettering, hopefully we'll get there.
I appreciate that. Is there anything else you'd like to say before we sign off?
I appreciate what you're doing. I think it's really important to have centers of the arts like you're venting. I think that's incredible. You are creating a safe space for musicians to do well in. You take care of them in the ways they need to be taken care of. And so I think all the things you're doing are important, and I think these conversations are important.
Well, thank you.
But I think what you're doing spread far and wide. And I think, you're building up something beautiful in Little York, PA, and that's something that should and can be replicable. And I think I don't know. I think hopefully that's a part of the mission that you take on. I think doing what you're doing is extremely important, and it's important for the music scene in general. And so I'd like to add that. And then I just hope everyone can kind of take this period and reassess everything, and we move forward towards a better place. That's all I can really just hope for and work towards.
We take our mission very seriously, to take care of the artists and to introduce them to our audiences. And I appreciate your kind words about it. I do wish there would be more and more spaces like that. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk a little bit today. For anyone who's watching, I'm doing this all day on the hour up through the last one starts at 4 p.m. The schedule is in my feed, but I'll be talking to How Real of World Cafe live at noon. And he's also sort of representing the National Independent Venue Association. So we'll talk some more about some of the things we've talked about here. So thank you again, Nathaniel. And I hope to get to talk to you again very soon.